Hi there, Thomas here with Heart Radiance Flutes, and I just wanted to chat a little bit about different types of flutes. I have different styles of flutes for sale, both in the drone flute style as well as drone flute versus single flute, non-drone flute style, and there's different keys. If you might notice those that are up for sale, there's a few different keys that are available. And some of them are made out of different woods as well. So just giving a little bit of a rundown to help guide your selection. We've got the flutes that I currently have up for sale as of January 2024, at least, when this video is being made. So most of the flutes that I make are drone flutes. I particularly like that sound, that particular mechanic, that it lends something unique and different that you don't really quite get with the single, and I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration here. So let's first just hear that difference real quick. So a basic non-drone standard flute. All the same types of sounds that you can make with a drone flute, you can make with a single style flute, but there's something different about a drone style flute that so when all of your holes are covering the notes and you play the articulated side, so if you notice there's one side, right, there's two chambers in this flute that one side that has notes, one side that has holes on it, and one side that does not. When all of the fingers are covering when your fingers are covering all of the holes, that same sound on one side is the same on the other. Now, if you can see, if you notice, the articulated side, the mouthpiece is a little bit raised up, which makes it a little bit easier to play just the one side if you want to, because there are moments and times when you only really want to be playing the one side. And in that case, it's essentially exactly the same as a single chambered flute. You just don't have the option of then going to a drone flute. So really they're the most versatile style type of flute, because you can just play the one side if you want, but they're a lot heavier, they're bigger, and they're more expensive. So if you're not always wanting something so involved, then just having the single is nice, but there's something really, really special about the drone. So again, here's just the one side. Now, they're not always, I do my best to get them dead even. It depends how much air you put into it, or the temperature outside, the humidity, things can change just a little bit. And usually it's going to be quite on, but there's also this level of harmonics that's happening when you get these nuanced multiple levels of subtle little resonance harmonics that are overplaying. So it's called a drone style flute because you're typically playing that bass drone, which is the same note that the key is in. So for example, this is in D. This flute is in the key of D. And therefore the bass note is D and the drone flute is D. So when you're playing the drone, that D is always playing on top of your other notes that you're playing. And that has some really nice, harmonics qualities. It's a much fuller, richer sound. So that's just the one side, or the drone. You can easily go between them, and that can sound nice too. And I'll do another video a little bit more about playing style and technique. Here I just want to articulate some of the differences. So this is my D flutes. Yeah, let's see. I also want to name that all of these flutes are in the key signature, well, the scale of a minor pentatonic. So there's really only 5 notes in the scale, and they all sound good together, which is one of the reasons why these flutes are really accessible and enjoyable to play. You can't really make bad sounds with them, no matter what you do. The notes sound pretty good together. Now, different keys, though, still have their own qualities. So this is a much bigger flute. If you're just getting into flute playing, this might not be the one that you want to jump to. If you notice, the finger spaces are just a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, and that can be a little bit more challenging to start off with. Some people find that a little bit more challenging, especially if you're somebody with smaller hands. Typically, female-bodied people have a little bit smaller of a hand space. You absolutely can learn to play any of the flutes. It just might be a little bit more challenging, and some people have expressed challenges with the bigger flutes. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. This D flute is one that I make a lot of because that's kind of the biggest hole spacing flute that is still playable for most people. That sounds really nice. It has a deeper quality. You often are playing different flutes a little bit differently. The higher pitched ones tend to kind of, be a little bit jumpy, and you play them a little bit faster a lot of times. As well as the percussive types of sounds are just a little bit different on these bigger flutes because there's more back pressure, the way that they function, the type of sound that they just make slightly different sounds. And when I say the percussive stuff, I'm talking about these. Now it's going to be quite different on that type of flute versus a little bit higher pitched one. Right? Yeah, so that's kind of something to keep in mind. It's basically like, what type of flute are you interested in? Do you want one more for meditation and sound healing kind of stuff? Are you okay with it being a lot bigger? It's more cumbersome. So this is the D. The F sharp is kind of the one that's what I make for most people. This is what I would encourage for an entry-level flute. The finger spacing, the hole size, all of it is very accessible for most people. They're just a little bit smaller holes, and the spaces are closer together. The flute itself is a little bit smaller, and it's lighter and just easier to take with you everywhere. So I make that in a drone, and then I make the F sharp in a single flute as well, which I know F sharp isn't the most playable with other instruments. It's a little bit less common of a key, but it's kind of a really nice medium. It's the best, it's probably the most common key for a Native American style flute, just because out of the spectrum of frequency, it's a really nice middle ground. It just sounds really nice. And most of the time people are playing them by themselves or with just a rattle or a shaker or a drum, and the key doesn't really matter. It really only starts mattering once you are playing with a guitarist or somebody else playing another keyed instrument. So you kind of depend, take that into account. What's the intention of how you're wanting to play, Absolutely, the F sharp is still playable with any other instrument. You just need to have a little bit more music theory know-how within that spectrum. The other aspect that I wanted to mention within this is that there are flutes made out of cedar, and like these two, and there's flutes that I have made out of Sitka spruce. Now, both are great, and I picked those two because they sound really, really nice. They have this soft kind of typical Native American style-y sound, a really nice resonance, and they fluctuate really well. They're all the same price. The Sitka spruce is significantly heavier. Like, this is a pretty heavy flute. So also, you know, just your arms can get a little bit tired if you're walking around carrying the heavier flutes. They're significantly more durable and scratch resistant and a lot more ding resistant. If you drop them all the time, if you think it's going to be in a really active environment, Sitka spruce might be a little bit better way to go. I personally really like the Sitka spruce. I like the way that it sounds. I like the durability. I don't mind the weight, but definitely some people do. The cedar is softer. It's gonna ding and dent a lot more easily. You have to take a lot more mindful care of it, or, you know, instruments are instruments and they do just kind of get dinged up a little bit over time, but cedar's really, really soft, which gives it this really nice, full, rich sound, but it's also a bit of a challenge. And so you have to do your best to kind of maintenance and take care of it. So that's what I want to say about just kind of the basic parameters on some of the flutes that I have. I hope that that's helpful. I'll give just a quick little demo of each one of these next to each other so you can hear. And then we'll go on to some other concepts in the next video. All right, so here's the F sharp single, and I do have some other flutes that I'm not demoing right now. There's even a higher pitched single flute, and there will be some really big bass flutes one day. So now the same key in a drone flute. So that's just the one side, pretty much the same as this flute. Now I'll just play the one side again to start with on the D, and then I'll switch to the drum. Now, you kind of have to own all of them for different purposes. I guess just to end, this is my like ceremony flute. This is what I bring for really sacred, tender spaces that really want to like feel deeply and richly in the heart. I mean, F is said to be more related to the heart chakra, but something about just like the deeper sound really penetrates. But if there's a lot of other like drony types of sounds going on, bells, bowls, didgeridoo, stuff like that, the lower pitch kind of gets lost within it. If there's, and so then in that case, sometimes you want like a higher pitched flute to be able to cut through those deeper lower bass sounds. Again, this one's just like a pretty good average, works well with lots of things and most people, a little bit easier to play for first getting off the bat. So what I typically recommend is the F-sharp drone flute for most people. All right, thanks for watching. Hope that was helpful, and see you in the next one.